All right, guys, my special guest tonight is Jimmy Dore. He's the host of the Jimmy Dore Show. So, Jimmy, I saw that you're coming to Massachusetts, I think in May.
Oh, yes, I am. That's right. I have to get, yep.
Okay, I'll be at that show.
Oh, fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm trying to hook up some shows in Boston at the same time. We'll see what happens.
Cool. Awesome. So, Jimmy, I wanted to talk to you about, because of course, Force the Vote has come back up in the news because of the concessions that, the Freedom Caucus members got from Kevin McCarthy. They actually did force the vote. And I want you to remind everyone, going back to when we were asking the progressives to force the vote against Nancy Pelosi, I want to remind everybody what was going on at that time in this country. At that point in time, we were pretty much at the height of the pandemic. So it was the perfect time to ask people, listen, we really need to push for Medicare for all in this country. But some naysayers, and I don't want to mention names, but some of the naysayers said, well, no, you shouldn't do it because it's not going to pass, as if they did not understand the strategy. Could you talk a little bit about that?
It's been misrepresented a million different ways by people who want to protect the politicians over the activists, right? So the people like the Ryan Grimms from Breaking Points, and also Crystal now is lying about what the squad's intention was. So it was in the middle of the pandemic, before we had the vaccine. People were, I was convinced if I got COVID, I was going to die, and so was everybody else. And the idea that talking about Medicare for all for a week on the news, wall to wall, is a bad idea in the middle of a pandemic where 3/4 of the country agree with Medicare for all that's a great thing that could have happened. So lots of people came out of the woodwork to lie and gaslight people about it. They said that McCarthy could become speaker if the Democrats did what the Republicans just did. And I'm not saying just Cenk Uygur did that, or just a guy with an MSNBC contract, or it was David Sirota also did that on my show, even though people somehow and wrote an article that confused the issue. People give him credit for that. The squad pointed to his article. AOC pointed to his article of why they shouldn't force the vote and why they shouldn't get a Medicare for all vote. And so these are all these people coming out of the woodwork to run cover for the squad, and they're still doing it. A lot of the Jacobin magazine, they wrote a whole article about what the right did, the left should learn from, without ever acknowledging that there was a whole group of lefty activists pointing this out 2 years ago, and they failed to do it on purpose. Ryan Grimm just interviewed Ro Khanna a couple of days ago on Breaking Points. He asked Ro Khanna, what are you going to do in 2 years? Because you're going to probably have the same slim majority as the Republicans just did, as if it just occurred to them. He didn't say, why didn't you do it 2 years ago? And if you're going to do something in 2 more years in 2024, what's different then that was different 2 years ago? Of course, they don't ask that question, which is why the squad and Ro Khanna go on Breaking Points and Ryan Grimm's show, because they know they'll never be asked a tough question or a follow-up. So what was happening 2 years ago, still happening now. It's just happening on more shows. Now they invented another show, Breaking Points, so they can fucking bullshit you about what the squad was doing. And what they're pretending is that the squad had a different strategy besides what we wanted them to do. They didn't have any strategy. That's a lie. Just like when Nina Turner lied when she said that they had an inside game and it's a strategy. And she made that shit up. I'll never forget that. That rings in my head. It's called a strategy. So she was fucking shielding those people with a bullshit lie. And then those people turned around and stabbed Nina Turner in the front and endorsed her corporate opponent in her primary. And she still protects them to this day. So that's what's everybody wants to be part of at the table of the corporate table, and they want to be in the ends with the Democratic Party. Nobody has the guts to actually go against them. Certainly we saw Bernie Sanders didn't. He never made them pay a price for cheating everybody and him in 2016. Never. He never made them change anything about it. They still take corporate money. They still have super delegates. They never changed anything. They never even acknowledged they cheated him. And so they'll never stand up to him. And now Bernie Sanders is doing everything he can to gaslight you into saying that Joe Biden is FDR and he's a good guy and you should support war in Ukraine. They're all war pigs, too. So what it revealed, what Force the Vote did was reveal that there is no left in America. And I recently saw someone smarter than me talking about this, and he was saying that the left in America is unlike the left anywhere else in the world. The left and the rest of the world is connected to the workers. The left in America is connected to the fucking middle class bullshitters who care more about gender identity than they do about Medicare for all, $15 minimum wage, and fucking strong unions. That's what the middle class. So he made it such a great. He says even if you're of color and you're on the left in America, you're probably in the middle class, and what you're going to worry about is how many seats on the board do people of color have instead of Medicare for all, unions, $15 minimum wage, and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's why the left, and there is no left. And by the way, where are the fucking nurses organizations been in this pandemic? Not one peep about Medicare for all, which would have saved hundreds of thousands of lives if you really care. Then not one peep about it during this pandemic. They didn't even bring up the public option, which Joe Biden used to get their support to run on. They're non-existent. So again, this like the leadership, and it also revealed, Force the Vote revealed that the leadership of lefty organizations are compromised and controlled and not really there to fight for you. Like the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, a lot of people join that organization, are good people, and they have good intentions, and they do good work. The leadership at the national level of the DSA is completely compromised and controlled. And it's obvious now. We still don't know who the fucking leader of the DSA is. Right. And the only time they'll come out is to shit on activists. They'll never hold their democratically electives, right? Their democratic elect. That's how that term they use. They'll never hold them accountable. They just crushed a workers union. They just crushed a railroad strike. And the DSA is supposed to kick those Democrats out of their organization for being bad socialists, but they're not doing that. So they're just another bullshit organization to take your revolutionary energy and funnel it back into an anti-worker, pro-Wall Street, pro-war party. That's what the DSA is there to do on a national level. And it's obvious now. It's obvious that the squad will never stand up for you, like the right wing will. They actually will stand up. And the only people voting against war these days are the people in the Republican Party. And they should be ashamed of that. But what they do is they clip me when I say that and go, Jimmy Dore's telling you that the Republicans are an anti-war party. That's not what I'm saying. We have two pro-war parties. I'm saying that we don't even get token people standing up against it. We don't get token protest against war from the lefties anymore. That only comes from the right wing. So I think talking about this all day and all night. I know I'm sorry, I'm monopolizing the conversation, but I I'm not about this. But it's completely clear, and then people like the Ryan Grimms come out and they want to muddy the waters. People like that are there to make simple moral issues seem complicated, and they're doing it again. And now they're trying to change the subject. It's classic CIA tactic. He's going out and he's tweeting out saying, "Please, I'm begging people to stop pretending Jimmy Dore invented the idea of leverage." That's not the issue. Nobody's saying Jimmy Dore invented the idea of why. Let's try to confuse the issue and get people talking it and make it about Jimmy Dore once again. And so that's what they're very good at. It comes right out of a CIA playbook. It's on how to do this, how to muck up the waters, how to make things seem complicated, how to make simple moral issues seem unclear and muddy the water. That's all this is doing. And now you have Breaking Point's host doing the same thing, saying that the squad, they didn't sell you out. They didn't turn their back on you. They didn't say that what activists were doing, what activists are supposed to be doing by pressuring politicians. They said that was violence. So they're not, no, they just had a different idea and it didn't work out for them. Their strategy didn't work out. They just made a oopsie. They thought they could get their progressive values implemented quicker if they played an inside game. That's what they're saying at Breaking Points right now. That's what Crystal's saying at Breaking Points. They thought if they just played an inside game, it would work out for them. So that's another case. So they've always said at Breaking Points they want to be the new mainstream. That's how they closed every video. We're the new mainstream. But holy fuck, are they the new mainstream? Because they're gaslighting activists at the behest of politicians right out in the open, and they don't give a shit. Why else did you hire Ryan Grimm? Why would you want the Mr. Billionaire funded fucking bullshitter Ryan Grimm on your YouTube show? What is that about?
Access to politicians That's what people have to understand. For those of you watching who are not aware, like, we don't have access, with the exception of Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna is the only one. He's the only one that will come on my show and like other shows. But other than that, we don't have access to any of the members of Squad. At least I don't. I never did. We don't have access to those politicians. But I think what was really important is that even in the DSA handbook, it did point out you should do this under this Trump administration. It may not pass, but you should still do it. So when people point fingers and say, oh, well, Brianna Joy Gray and Jimmy Dore wanted them to do something that wasn't going to pass, that came directly from the DSA handbook. So people really need to understand that. But you don't see them critique the DSA for putting that message in their handbook in the first place. It's not like this idea just came, out of nowhere. It came directly from their handbook. So I've actually called to DSA to remove those members from their organization. Someone called into my call-in show recently and said they used to be a part of DSA. They left DSA, and they said DSA doesn't even have a process to remove members.
Ha! Okay. What does that tell you? They're not about discipline. They're not about message. They're not about it. They're about protecting people. They don't even want to get rid of those people. They don't even want to pressure their own politicians. That's what that means. The DSA, they all tweet. Nina Turner just tweeted yesterday how we got to pressure politicians, and the AOC tweeted that out. AOC said it makes us better, and I just retweet, and they blocked me. Right. So immediately Nina Turner blocked me because I was holding her accountable, and she called me anti-Black. And so it's a shield that they all use, and they're all phonies, and it doesn't make me feel good. I used to like it better in 2015 when we were all on the same team and we all had a leader. But as soon as Bernie decided to bend the knee to the Democratic Party and the Clinton machine, his movement has been dead ever since. He disbanded his own movement. He extracted nothing from the establishment for turning his movement over to the establishment. He got nothing out of Joe Biden for his support during the election. He stabbed us in the back, and Bernie Sanders will never make him pay a price for that. He won't even fucking bring it up.
Nope. No. So there's a couple of things going on here as well. I do want to point this out. Now, Case Study QB clipped this. Now, this is Bloomberg Network, and they're talking about what the left needs to learn from the right.
Okay. Greg, what did the progressives, the far left wing of the Democratic Party, what did they learn from the McCarthy speaker fiasco? What lessons were taken from the strength and negotiating power of the far right over by the far left?
Two things, Tom, quickly. Number one, some people in the Democrats Party, feel that this gives them an opportunity to continue branding these extremists as the enemy, and that might help them. But I think the bigger takeaway is that this is going to be a tough fight. It's going to be a nasty year. There's going to be hearings. I think there's a chance Trump could get indicted later in Georgia, later in the month. It's going to be a really nasty year, and I think the Democrats got to wake up call by what they saw over the last weekend.
Greg, what did
He said, I think the Democrats got a wake-up call by what they saw. Even mainstream media, Jimmy, has been pointing this out, that, wow, like the Republicans did something that the left was supposed to do. They basically looked at that strategy, that force the vote strategy, and like, hey, how can we apply this to ourselves? And so they were actually able to use that. And yes, some people mocked them for doing it, but that's not the point. Even the people who are arguing over the concessions that they got, to me, that's not the point. One of the concessions that they did fight for was to reduce the defense budget. I 100% support that. It's the fact, though, that they actually were willing to fight for something. And the Squad, who's a part of Justice Democrats, that's exactly what that organization was designed to do, to go in and push back against the establishment Democrats. And a hostile takeover of the Democratic Party is what they told us. There's been no hostility from them. They've just fallen in line.
And people will make excuses for them left and right. Even people who are of good will reflexively defend them. So what happened last week with the Republicans? It just lays bare the lie that there's somebody inside the Democratic Party fighting for you. There isn't. They're all war pigs. It's all they literally voted to break a strike for F's sake. Those are supposed to be somehow progressives. They voted to break a strike, and then they had Ryan Grimm out there live for them saying that the workers wanted them to, and of course they didn't. So that this is the short of Christian Smalls and you know, making things happen, or people like that, or this country is Brazil. We're done already. We'll give $100 billion to Ukraine before we'll give $100 billion to our own country. I try to say, okay, I'll meet you halfway on your corruption. You want to send $100 billion to the most corrupt country in Europe for a proxy war against Russia over fossil fuels? Okay, I'll let you do it because you've been doing it my whole life. But can you at least give $100 billion to America at the same time? How about you send $100 billion to Los Angeles and San Diego and Boston and New York and Minneapolis, Chicago, Atlanta, Florida? Why don't we do that so we could fix homelessness? Because it could fix homelessness 3 times over. Can you imagine if we invested $100 billion into affordable housing in America? Wow, that would be amazing. Almost like someone gave a shit about the people for once. It would make you feel that way, but they don't do that. And so people rightly know there's nobody looking out for them. And they don't feel there is no political party that's looking out for them. And Force the Vote revealed that. And so now people don't know what to do. And so now you see people over like at breaking points, like they're now doubling down, trying to get you to go back into the Democratic Party and vote Democrat. That's all they know. They don't have an original thought in their head. That's it. Instead of telling people stop donating and stop voting for Democrats and put that energy someplace else, because you keep voting for Democrats, that's voting for the status quo. And if you like the status quo, keep voting for Democrats. Until we take our vote away from them, they will never, ever do anything for us. Joe Biden couldn't give a fuck. Joe Biden's worse for the left than the fucking Trump was. Are you kidding me? He's deporting way more Hispanics than we are. Anyway, there was a chance to get shit done with Trump. There isn't a chance to get shit done with Joe Biden.
No, and the other thing I want to point out too, in reference to excuses as to why they chose not to force the vote, only one politician has actually answered that question to me, and that was Ro Khanna. And the excuse he gave was that, well, it wasn't going to pass. And I said, but that wasn't the point. So I explained to him the strategy. And he said, well, if you wanted to know who supported it, all you have to do is look at who signed on to Bernie Sanders' bill.
Sabby, when he says that, he knows that that's not fucking true. He knows he's lying. And by the way, he gave a different, he knows he's lying, right? So he knows that a vote, well, here, AOC is the one says the reason why you have a vote is so people can't say later that they felt a different way. So we know how they did. And then we can show later generations that we did everything we could to fight for this. And Ro Khanna knows that. And he comes on your show and he's very polite and he lies to you. That's what that is. He came on my show and lied about the CARES Act. And that's the last time I'll ever have him on. He's a fucking liar. He's just like the rest of them. I thought he was different too, but the CARES Act and the way they handled it revealed all of them to be go-alongs for the machine.
That's right. And Cori Bush's response for not doing it, she told Max Blumenthal that, well, that's Bernie Sanders and Pramila Jayapal's bill. That's not my bill. That was the silliest excuse I ever heard. Like, so you're only going to support bills that you wrote or you co-wrote? You've been supporting everybody's bills all this past year. That's ridiculous. I couldn't even believe it was such a cop-out.
It was surprising to me how long it took some people to catch on to Cori Bush with that stunt she did on the steps of the Capitol. If that wasn't a mask-off moment for you, I mean, the people still need more. Yeah. And isn't it amazing? AOC with 12 million followers will never ask them to do an action ever. Never ask them to get in the streets. Never ask them to shut anything down. Never, ever, ever. She's not an activist, but what she will do is try to smear and discredit activists who pressure her to do what she ran on. That's what she does. She said, I committed violence against her with my words.
Well, recently, AOC actually responded on Instagram. This is very funny. She responded to a question about.
I am so sick and tired of looking at her. Honest to God. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is funny. I don't know if you've seen this, but this was live, I guess, and people did ask her, why aren't Democrats trying to hold their vote and get some type of concessions. Listen to what she said.
I see some people say, Dems should negotiate to get concessions. We do all the time. But what we don't do is bring them publicly in order to empower not just Republicans, but the fascist flank of the Republican Party. And ironically, a lot of the concessions that Kevin McCarthy, in nature, they're not the same ones, of course, but the nature of some of these concessions actually do overlap with some of the concessions that have been the subject of private negotiations on the Democratic side.
We're doing it all in secret.
We have also negotiated for certain
That's the beauty of a transparent
budgetary
government, Sabby. We do everything in private and secret. That's the principle that socialists have about government. Everything should be a secret in private, and we can't tell you anything. And if we do, that's helping fascists. Holy fucking
But
shit.
wait till you hear what they asked for. This is the funny part.
We have negotiated for certain budgetary rules. We've negotiated there have been negotiations around committees, budgetary rules.
And you lost all those
and very similar kind of scopes and areas. But we do that prior to getting to the floor vote.
So she's gaslighting her audience because she knows exactly what people are referring to when they say fight for concessions. Those are things that benefit them, Jimmy. Like, it doesn't benefit us. I don't care what committee you get on. That doesn't benefit the American people. Even if they didn't want to force the vote for Medicare for all, they could have forced the vote for anything else for the American people.
They didn't negotiate anything. They lost committee seats after they decided not to withhold their vote for Nancy Pelosi. AOC got kicked off her committee. They all got kicked off their committees. They didn't negotiate for anything. That's another lie. That's 100% lie. They didn't do that. It'd be one thing if they did, then we could criticize them for negotiating for themselves. They didn't even do that. They didn't negotiate anything. They said they negotiated PAYGO. And then I did a little searching and I realized they had already gotten PAYGO assurances that they would be able to repeal PAYGO, and they wouldn't, for any progressive legislation, they would suspend it. They already got that. So the only thing that's what she says, we had budgetary, she's referring to PAYGO. And that's a lie, right? I found out, I did a little searching. I found out that they had already gotten Nancy Pelosi's assurances that she would suspend PAYGO for any progressive legislation. So she's just 100% liar. It's amazing that people who consider themselves lefties will go along with this. I always thought that I had a brotherhood. We had a real alliance with people on the left and progressives and the Bernie movement, and we don't. As soon as Bernie tucked his tail and started worshiping at the altar of the Democratic Party, Joe Biden and Wall Street, which is what he's doing, everybody, they don't know what to do with themselves. And the people who have stayed consistent, like you, like me, they shit on. Right?
People.
And they try to make us out to be right wingers, right? Because we stayed consistent.
Well said. And she goes on to say this. I'm gonna play this piece here as well. This is on her Instagram, you guys, if you want to see the full. It's a long video. I only got a clip.
Not only that, but when people say Dems should do this, there's also a very critical question of just basic math. The House Freedom Caucus.
We don't know math. We don't know math, Jimmy. That's basically what she's saying here. They had enough people to withhold their vote and get some type of concession. So she's lying again.
So can I read to you from the DSA handbook?
Yeah.
What we need now to fight back against this assault is an unshakable working class movement capable of forcing politicians to reject lobbyist influence. Now is the time to be clear about our demands and pressure politicians to get on board. Pushing a floor vote in the House not only tests the political strength of the movement to make that happen, it also sends the bill to the Senate, calling the question there. Though we know Medicare for all will not become a reality under the Trump administration, a House floor vote is the best which side are you on political opportunity in 2019, and sets the stage to make Medicare for all the decisive issue of 2020. That's from the DSA handbook. That's why you would do it. Here's a tweet. Can you see this tweet? Can you read that? I'll read that. I'll tell you what this says. This week, I presented my amendment to remove barriers to research on therapeutic potential of psychedelic substances. The first time I offered it, members laughed at me on the House floor. I got 91 votes. This time, more understood. Support surged to 140 votes. We won't give it. So this is her saying you got to introduce bills more than once for it to succeed. And when did she say that? Oh, I don't have the date on that. Isn't that amazing? So they betray themselves every day. And still people don't want to see it. Still people think Jimmy Dore's the problem. Jimmy Dore wasn't nice enough to politicians. That was what Kyle Kalinske said. And that's when he lost 10,000 subscribers and he's never gained them back. So that's what we're up against. There is no left in America. And if we stay true to our lefty values, they're going to call us right wingers. That's what they've done to you guys already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as if we can't go back and play video footage.
Right.
That's what's really interesting to me. But the fact that she was sitting there just gaslighting her audience, here's the last piece of that here.
Comprises of 20, well, we see the holdouts here comprised of 21 members. That is a huge faction of your party to go into a vote day without negotiating without satisfying. And for Republicans to go, for Kevin McCarthy to go into a speakership vote while knowing that he does not have 21 people is almost unthinkable. So there's like just the basic math of the issue. Democrats do not have a flank of 21 that would do that.
But they didn't need a flank of 21 people to do it. That's the piece that she's leaving out, and she's doing that on purpose.
So it was Ilhan Omar who tweeted out in December of 2020 that in the next Congress, 5 progressives, because the margin of victory is so small, 5 progressives will be able to hold sway policy. What was exactly they said? It'll take 5 courageous progressives. Turns out we didn't have one. She knew it. She knew it. And so again, there's AOC just blatantly lying. So who are these people who still believe in her? Who are the people who, I don't understand who the people in her district are who don't see through her?
Well, I can tell you part of the problem with her district, because I've talked to a couple of people that live in her district, nobody's challenging her. No one's really, there's nobody like, no one on the left is really like trying to primary challenge her. That's part of the problem. So she's like a guaranteed shoe-in there. The other thing too, when they go and do these speaking engagements, all of them came to the Boston area here. They went to the PMC class neighborhoods. Like they weren't trying to go see people that live in places like Everett or like Chelsea, like we're working class communities. They went to the college areas. They went over there near Harvard University, those types of places. That is who their base is now. Their base in the beginning, it used to be more working class, but now I see that they have adapted to that same like PMC group that the establishment Democrats have. Those are a lot of the people who are still supporting them. That's a big part of the problem.
So, yeah, so now they've shifted just like Chuck Schumer. So now their constituency is Hillary Clinton's constituency, is Chuck Schumer's constituency. It's the white college-educated liberals in the suburbs. That's who AOC appeals to because it makes them feel good. Look, this woman of color, I support her, as she gaslights and fucks over the working class.
And that's also pretty much the base for DSA too.
Yeah.
DSA is also that same demographic group. That's a big part of the problem. You would think like if their organization talking about like working class issues, they would have working class people part of the organization, not from what I've seen.
They don't. Did you see the woman who runs the DSA who considers herself biracial? She's whiter than Elon Musk. And she's with a straight face, I'm biracial. Get the fuck out of here. It's so funny. I guess I'm biracial too. Yeah,
but Jimmy, what do you say to people who say, because I know a lot of people, they've thrown a lot of like hate towards you in reference to force the vote.
That's right.
As if they magically forget that Cornel West was a part of Force the
That's
Vote,
right.
Crystal Ball, Kyle Kalinske, Brianna Joy Gray. Well, Brianna gets heat too. Was also a part of Force the Vote. There were a lot of
Just
people
me and
that were
Brianna
part
get
of it.
heat. Just me and Brianna get
Yep.
heat. Nobody gives Cornel West a hard time about it. Nobody gives Medea Benjamin a hard time about it. Nobody gives Marianne Williamson a hard time about it. All those people, nobody, they were all a part of Force the Vote. Nobody gives them a hard time. Even Crystal Ball had tepid support. Kyle Kalinske supported it up until they got that phone call that told them not to be bad, to be mean to Jimmy Dore. So that was, and then I was persona non grata with them ever since. So yeah, there's a lot of people that were for Force the Vote, but they want to make it out like it was just Jimmy Dore. And isn't it amazing how Kyle Kalinske was silent on this the last week or two? Isn't it amazing? Because he was a big advocate for Force the Vote, and then he's been silent. And then as soon as they didn't do it, he turned on me and the activists and said we were too mean to the squad, and we have to learn how to be nicer to them. And that's how you get things done, by being nicer to politicians. And his show's been in the toilet ever fucking since.
And that's all, again, to maintain access. Who was the person who made the phone call? Because I know Bree mentioned this on Rising. She said a call went out. And I'm like, who made the call? Who was so powerful to make people pull away from this type of strategy?
I don't know. You tell me. Was it Jeffrey Katzenberg? Was it another, or was it a different billionaire? You tell me, who was it? Was it Pierre Omidyar over at The Intercept, that billionaire? They were able to get Glenn Greenwald fired. I mean, yeah. So who knows which billionaire it was that called those people? But maybe that's who it was.
Well, I think it's sad that they could just take calls from those people, because what we're starting to notice, at least like those of us at RBN, is that there was all of this energy, obviously, around this Bernie movement and the squad and the Justice Democrats, people saying, yeah, you guys need to get in there and push back against them. Some people used to heavily criticize Democrats much more than they are now. And now it's just like a lot of those people have just kind of caved, and they're praising Joe Biden for things that he should not be, praised for. It's just like some people have just sold out. In a sense, they're going along with establishment media talking points because I guess they feel, well, this Bernie movement is over, so I'm going to go ahead and leaning in further to the right, which is where Joe Biden is.
It's amazing to see the lack of conviction, the lack of courage, the cowardice, the complete. I mean, somebody made a video and it showed Mike Figueredo and Jordan Sheridan completely saying the opposite. They sounded like me, and now they do the exact opposite. Now they're. I saw a tweet was lamenting that somebody on Status Coup had criticized the squad, and a lot of people unsubscribed from the show.
Yes,
and I was like, what audience do you think Jordan Sheridan has fucking cultivated over there? They're a bunch of goddamn blue MAGA people. That's all he's got. As soon as he turned his back on people like me and activists and said that we're being too mean to politicians, who the fuck do you think is watching that goddamn show? So I don't know how I got off on that, but
yep.
It is amazing to see. I mean, it was a Turncoat Don who did those videos. I should retweet those once a day. Those are amazing videos. I mean, what an unbelievable contrast to see those two guys, such fucking chumps and charlatans on purpose. Who the fuck, again, so when I ask who the fuck watches those shows, now we know it's Hillary Clinton voters. That's who watches those shows.
Yeah, so much I think has changed since then. It's unfortunate. Yeah, the statement that I heard that was made was that there are no progressives in the House, and apparently that pissed off some of the viewers. So I think that was the statement that bothered some people. But it's true. It's true. They're strike breakers.
They're strike breakers.
Look at the way they vote, like the legislations that they approve.
They're strike breakers and war pigs. Who the fuck votes for $100 billion for a proxy war and you call yourself a progressive or a socialist or anything? That money is going to kill poor people for who? For the military-industrial complex and big oil. That's what this is all about.
Where do you think?
They're not progressives.
Where do you think?
I welcome Jordan Sheridan, and I welcome Mike Figueredo, and I welcome all the shit libs and TYT and MSNBC contracts. I invite them all back on board to the real progressive train. But what that would mean is that when you organize along class lines, not left, right, Class lines. It's us against them, not Republicans against Democrats. That's fucking yesterday, baby. And so but they'll never stop doing that. That's all they know is called right-wing fascists, bad people. What they have to do is reach out to people like I did. You have to reach out to Boogaloo Boys and Trumpers. That's what Christian Smalls did on Staten Island, because we share a common enemy. And they're not the ones who are fucking keeping me from Medicare for all or a living wage or from fixing homelessness. And a bunch of fucking people who are desperate enough to vote for a game show host. The people keeping me from that are the people with power called the Democrats.
Yeah, I think what people may not understand too is that you have to understand, if you want any type of labor movement in this country,
right.
which some people are calling for, you can't just have a labor movement with people on the left. There's no such thing.
There's no such thing.
That doesn't make any sense. I mean, Chris Smalls knew that. I mean, Staten Island is for the most part, from what I remember, is conservative.
That's right. They're Trump voters.
So that right there just goes to show you, that's why I feel like, and they know this though, Jimmy, they know that if you're trying to unionize, you have to work with people on the other side. You can't just unionize with people who are on the left. So this idea of people saying we need a labor movement only for people on the left, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
It's that shows that they're as the RBN likes to say, they're unserious people. And I've been saying this for years, ever since I had a Boogaloo Boy on my show and people pilloried more for it as if I was interviewing a Nazi. A Boogaloo Boy, it was the response to the Proud Boys. They were people who were libertarian, who were anti-Trump, anti-government, anti-cop, anti-war, and they were pro-Black Lives Matters. And people wanted to, they were like, oh shit, that means the people on the right and left could come together. And that's what the establishment is scared of the most. And so they had to immediately, that's when they started writing all those smear pieces about me in the establishment magazine, New York Magazine, Newsweek, all those pieces of shit started to smear me as some kind of right-wing fascist. They're still doing it today. MSNBC just did an article, me, Matt Taibbi, Glenn Green, the usual suspects were all, somehow we're the authoritarians, right? Even though MSNBC gives contracts to the former head of the fucking CIA to sit on their panel. So somehow we're the people. So that's, I hope people see that's the game they play. As soon as you try to organize along class lines, they call you a right-winger, they'll call you a fascist, they'll call you a red-brown alliance. That's my favorite, red-brown alliance. Well, what kind of fucking alliance are you going to have among workers?
That's right. I mean, people are criticizing Matt Taibbi now, which I thought I'd never see people call him right-wing. This is crazy. They're saying this about Glenn Greenwald. Like, these are journalists, like people highly respected. But because Matt Taibbi has released those Twitter files, people are like, oh my God, he's right wing. I'm like, why? Because he's reporting the information that's there?
Because it makes the Democratic Party look bad. And so anything that you say that's negative, it started with me right around Hillary Clinton. That's when I lost a lot of friends in comedy, when I wouldn't vote for Hillary Clinton and I wouldn't shut up about her corruption. And they all thought, like, you're a right winger. Why are you helping Trump? Why are you going? No, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I have the courage to do. Okay. And you don't. And so that started then. And so now if you do anything that hurts the Democratic Party, you're immediately a right winger. Anybody to the left, that's why they had to paint Jill Stein and the Green Party as Russians. I mean, it's amazing. And then they get that Howie Hawkins, who is a CIA fucking plant, to go repeat Russiagate. So again, I love the Green Party. I love people in the Green Party, except Howie Hawkins. He's a CIA plant.
Yeah, Howie never wins, and he continues to run really weird.
And he continues to Russiagate and say the dumbest fucking shit. And he was for mandates. Holy shit, is that guy not a lefty, man?
Yeah, he was. Well, Jimmy, where do you think people go from here? Because, like, where should lefties go from here? We've talked before about third parties. We've talked about organizing on the outside, some type of direct action.
There's got to be more mass movements of workers coming together along class lines, like Christian Smalls did. I think that's the only thing that, we're doing an anti-war rally in February. I would like to see a third party start. I don't have the time or ability to do that. I wish someone would. Nick Brana was starting the People's Party. I don't know what the situation is with that, to get some candidates to run. I would love to go out and work hard for a People's Party candidate. And right now we're going to be replacing the Senator Feinstein in California. It looks like. People want to put Katie Porter in there, and I'm like, well, let's get a People's Party candidate to run because California is a weird system. They don't have a Democratic and Republican primary. We just have one primary, and then the top two vote getters are on the ballot. That was another way to screw third parties, by the way. So you couldn't have a third party alternative in the race in the general election. So that's why they did that. Right? It looks like, this is going to level the playing field. That's not what that's doing. It's actually making it hard for third parties. But since I think if we got a popular person to run for Senate, we could get it done. We could certainly point out how someone like how the squad. What is her name? I just mentioned her name, and I can't. They want her to be the. Anyway. They want her to run. What is her name? I just mentioned her name. The woman, Katie Porter.
Katie Porter.
Right.
Yeah.
So they want her to do it. I'm sure people are hesitant to vote for another goddamn Democrat, right? After she just showed you she wouldn't do what the right wing just did. She's never going to stand up to power or the establishment. She'll never fight for you. No. And so I think she's very beatable. And I'm going to look into that. It would be nice to get a candidate that already has name recognition that can run as a third party person here in California and set the example. I would love to have that happen. We'll see. Again, I'm pretty busy. I run a company. I have, 5, 6 employees at least. And there's always another crisis over here to take care of. So and plus I'm trying to tour as a comedian. It's very hard to do all these things. I never wanted to run a business in my life. I always wanted to be a jerk off comedian. That's why I wanted to be a flake. I wanted to miss my appointments and have people try to corral me. I wanted to be the artist. I didn't want to have to be the person who has responsibility, but here I am. I have it. And I appreciate people like RBN. I appreciate people like you. There's not many allies out there willing to tell the truth and stand up. And if we're ever going to get change, it's going to be because of people like us raising consciousness and because of workers coming together across party lines. And that's my message. And, when you go to one of my shows, you'll often see, I'll see hippies. I'll see Trump voters. I'll see libertarians. I'll see socialists. I'll see black, white, old, young, just like I used to see at a George Carlin show. And, the people who are anti-authoritarian come out to my shows. I have hippies come up to me and they'll be like, what the fuck happened to the left? Nobody's for free speech anymore. They say it's a right-wing value. I know. These are the conversations I have with hippies at my shows. And by the way, when I say hippies, I mean 60-year-old, 70-year-old hippies, because there aren't any young ones anymore. They all turn into fucking brain mush, mask-wearing fucking authoritarians who want to censor their political opponents.
Yeah. One of the things, what do you think about something like what Shama Sawant is doing through Socialist Alternative, where the organization actually picks the best person that they think should run? And I think about all the things that Shama Sawant's been able to accomplish in Seattle compared to what the squad has done. And I feel like someone like her, she's been more effective on the local level. What do you think about that type of strategy, what she's doing with Socialist Alternative?
Yeah. She's the real deal, Shama Sawant. And I didn't know that that's what they did. So thanks for informing me on that. I think that's a great idea. Unfortunately, the word socialist scares the hell out of people. And it's like you're putting a barrier in front of you and your potential supporters, So that's the only problem I have with that, or concern, put it that way. I'm all for Shama and all for her organization and everything she pushes. I'm for it too. So, I think everybody could learn a lot from Shama Sawant, and it's so refreshing to hear her talk and to hear her call out the bullshitters, like when she was on and she was on with Ryan Grimm. She just laid it out. She just said, "Hey, you're here to obscure reality." And what did she say? What in the actual fuck? She said that to him. That was great.
Right.
So,
if you criticize them too heavily, you guys, you lose access to those politicians.
That's right.
That's right. That's what's important. People understand. Jimmy, there's this, you mentioned this earlier, Rage Against the War Machine in DC. I think you're going to be one of the speakers here. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, well, I'm not organizing it. I just been invited. I think there's a lot of people on board. I think Code Pink is on board, and they're trying to get, um, a lot of they're trying to get like Roger Waters and people like that involved. So that's coming up in February 19th. I think it's going to be a nice action. I'm flying out for that. I'm going to give a speech, and fingers crossed we get a big crowd and we can make a dent, and it'll be fun watching the mainstream media ignore us or distort what we are.
Yeah, if I have to check with the hubs. If my husband can get that Friday off, we would be there.
Can you click on speakers, see what it says?
Yeah.
See who the speakers are. Oh, look, Medea Benjamin. Oh, Scott Horton. Okay, so there it is. Code Pink, Scott Horton from antiwar.com.
Yep.
Is that it? Is that all they have so far? Those three? No, we got some more. Let's see.
Garland Nixon.
Garland Nixon, David Swanson. Oh, yeah. I don't
Daniel
know.
Adams.
Okay.
Oh, they increased this list because it says Max and Anya now.
Oh, look at that. Okay, fantastic. Somebody named Supreme from the Wu-Tang Clan. Fantastic.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember him. Yeah, no, they have increased. Tara Reid. They have increased this list. Okay. Because I think when I checked recently, I just saw you, Garland, and Medea.
So let's get Cornel West on there. Let's get I say let's get I would love to get some anti-war electeds, as they say. Wouldn't that be great?
And this is one thing
the only elected people in Congress that are against it are Republicans.
Well, this is something I do agree with the libertarians on, and that's anti-war.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something I do agree with them on. Like, this is, I think, guys, if you're in the DC area, if you can make it out, please try to. It would be great if they could get, I know some of these people are really hard to get because they're super busy, but it would be great if they could get like Chris Hedges. He was at the Assange one that I went to in DC recently. And then also Cornel West would be a good one too, if they could. Again, I know these people are very busy, so it's not easy to get them like on the fly like that. But and then also she would have to fly out too. But Kim Iverson would be good, to speak at this as well. But these are the organizers: the Libertarian Party, People's Party, Mises Caucus, Peace in Ukraine, Liberty Speaks, Radical Caucus, Action for Assange is one of the organizers. Punk Rock Libertarians Podcast, that's an interesting name. World Beyond War, Center for Political Innovation. So I think this is probably going to be the biggest event, anti-war event you can get in DC, you guys, for those of you watching. That should be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try to make it out there. If I do, I would definitely live stream this in some way, shape, or form.
Again, this used to be one of those issues like a floor vote on Medicare for all that the left had always agreed on, that to be against war. And now that's not the case. There's people for the Ukraine war who consider themselves, progressives. And it's like, no, you're, oh my God. Anyway, so that we got to remind people that war is not a progressive value.
Yes, and these are the demands. I just mentioned that to Glenn Greenwald too. I was like, I don't know what happened to the left, but they have a list of demands. And I think anytime you're doing some type of action, you need to have a list of demands. Otherwise, people are like, okay, what was it for? Right. Not one more penny for war in Ukraine, negotiate peace, stop the war inflation, disband NATO, global nuclear de-escalation, slash the Pentagon budget, abolish the CIA and the military industrial deep state, abolish war and empire, restore civil liberties, and free Julian Assange. So yes, guys, if you can make it, definitely checking out. That'll be February 19th. It's President's Day weekend.
Yeah, hope to see everybody there.
All right, Jimmy, any final words for people before you go? Like, what advice would you give to people? Well, first and foremost, I asked Max Blumenthal this, and his question or his answer was really funny, but he was serious. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. What advice would you give to people who would like to get into the independent media space? What would you tell them?
Oh, well, I mean, independent news media. I mean, what you do is if you have to have a passion that you want to talk about, and you have to show up and talk about it every day to build an audience. And that's what I did. Now, I don't know how the algorithm exactly works anymore, but when I started, it used to be you had to do 5 to 8 clips a day, and no longer than 10 minutes. Well, that's changed. They reward you now for the length of view. So I do longer videos than I used to, but it takes a lot of work. And so, you have to commit to it. And so if you're serious about it and you commit to it and you have a little talent, you'll be able to be successful in this space, I think.
Well said. Well said. All right, Jimmy, thanks so much for coming on.
Okay. Thank you, Sabs. Great work. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay, guys. Thanks so much for tuning into that. Let me go ahead to some of these comments here because I don't want to forget these. Jay says, Jimmy was the first person I seen call them out for not forcing the vote. Not only that, his takedown is solid. Thank you for the super chat, Deanna. The right seems to respect their base while the do nothing Dems lie to and gaslight theirs. That's a good point. Thanks for the super chat. Terry says, good job, Sabby. You have Jimmy on. Shout out to my comrade JB, says the Justice Democrats experiment failed. That is so true, JB. Thank you for the super chat, Bryant. Do you believe calling this out will have an impact, over impact on elections? And if so, why or why not? I can tell you I've seen people in the past, I'd say the past year or so, slowly moving away from the Democratic Party. And that doesn't mean they're moving to the Republican Party. Some people have done that too, though. But just totally saying, you know what, both of these parties are corrupt. I don't want to belong to any of these parties. And more people have reached out to me saying they're going to vote third party. Some people said they're only going to focus on local politics. So there's been things happening all around, but I do feel that it does give somewhat of an impact. Unfortunately, though, our voices are small, at least mine is, compared to mainstream media. Obviously, they still get most of the viewers, even though their views are declining. Thank you for the super chat, Nambians. The squad exists to provide privileged suburbanites with the illusion of democracy.